Hi guys, today we're going to attempt to do a Nitro engine break-in video. I did one several years ago, and I did it using my break-in bench, and I always use my break-in bench because it's just easier, but it is a little hard to follow if you don't have a break-in bench and you're going to be doing it in the car, because there is a few things, the starter box and everything's a little bit different. Sorry, it's like windy today. I'd rather be out in the driveway, better light, kind of have the light behind me and stuff, but it's not working out. We got a neighbor doing some air nailing and stuff. One just got done mowing lawn. It's pretty tough. My neighbor's always doing something. But we're gonna go through this and hopefully it turns out good. A few things that you're gonna need. You're gonna need charged batteries in your receiver pack, your radio, your starter box, everything, your LiPo or your glow igniter are gonna be, everything needs to be charged. You're gonna need a good starter box. Now today I'm going to be breaking in this Novarossi 28. The one that I did this is for the speed run car that I modified earlier this year, and I hadn't broken in yet. I'm not going to be running it in the truggy, but just thought I'd throw it in there. I didn't have an engine in the truggy. This is an associated RC8T 3.1. I didn't get to race this year, so I haven't ran it. I did clean it up yesterday and stuff. An essential thing is to get a good glow igniter. This Dynamite LiPo one is the best one I've used. The NiCad ones seem to work okay, but if you take a NiCad, I think some can use a nickel metal hydride battery. They just use a single cell in there, and that's the voltage that you get. So when that battery, if it's at 1.5 volts, then it goes down to 1.3, and then you're not going to glow as bright. Where the LiPo is on one cell, LiPo is 4.2 volts. So they need to reduce it down to, I'm not even sure what, 1.5 usually, but I don't know how much voltage they're actually getting. I guess I should check that sometime. But so you're going from 4.2 down to the voltage. So it's going to be constant at that voltage until it gets down to being dead. But then it also has a nice light at the top. When you have a good plug, the light lights up. So if you have a dead plug, it's easy to tell if the plug's dead because that light won't light there on top. And you just plug a cord in the 110, plug it in there, and it charges. Another very important thing, depends on what you're doing, but you need a good starter box. This one's a Dynamite. This thing's got to be 10 years old, maybe even 11 years old. And it depends on if you're going to be doing a race engine or like an RTR type engine. An RTR engine won't come with the fit as tight at the top of the piston and sleeve. It won't be quite as tight. They tend to run a little looser, a little easier break in, whether it's a pull start or whatever. But with a good race engine, you're going to need a starter box with two motors, and a 4S. I recommend a 4S LiPo. This is just an airplane LiPo. It's not a hard case or anything. It's a 3200 4S airplane battery. It doesn't need to be too much of a high C rating or anything. This battery was original with this box too. I'm not even sure if Dynamite still makes this box actually. Often I used to make a good box too. Not too many companies make really good ones now, but the ones with one single motor really just don't have that oomph on a really tight motor. What's really popular nowadays is doing the oil bath break-in. You send in your engine for $50, and they break it in an oil bath, and I think that's a good thing. I think it gets it done for you. You don't have to mess around. You just got to run a couple tanks easy on it. But I do think that it's not as good as what we're going to do here. It's not. The oil is heated on those, but I don't think they're heat cycling it. Like, I like a heat cycle method. Now, this engine right here already I recommend heating it and cooling it once before even firing it up. You're getting that, all the material, the block, the sleeve, the piston, everything's moving, because this head and everything hasn't been seen 200 degrees yet. So you're kind of just getting everything where it kind of is going to be. It's going to move some more later, but it's going to do its most moving now. So I like to do a heat cycle first. Heat it up to over 200 degrees. I like 225, maybe even 250 if you can, and then let it cool. You can put a fan in front of it. Doesn't matter, you know, if you cool it down fast. But and then so I think a heat cycle method is better than just. I think the oil bath break-in really isn't much different than just lapping the piston. Now I've done that, especially when I used to sell a lot of Argus and Alpha engines. They were extremely tight, almost too tight for guys with good equipment. So I would lap the piston in. I didn't do it in the cylinder or anything. I had kind of a mock-up of a cylinder, like plastic, and I still have them. And I do it occasionally on a modified engine or an engine I sell or something, where it just takes away that initial hard pinch and makes break-in much easier and go faster too. Another thing you're going to need is fuel. Now Bones, I've been using Bones Brew for a few years. I've used Dynamite HP8 when Kennel was sponsored by TLR and Horizon. I've used Sidewinder. I've used Byron's, and this Bones Brew is just as good as, probably better than a lot of the other stuff. So this that I have here now is an 8% oil. It's a 30% nitro, 8% oil. Now you could use a 20% if you want to break it in. Use a little bit cheaper fuel to break it in. I think the 8% oil is a little bit low for oil for break-in. Now Bones Brew sells break-in fuel, and I don't know what the difference is. I'm assuming it has more oil content, so that would help. And it does help it break in a little bit faster. I have used it and it does work. This is all I had right here. Now I actually added a couple drops of castor oil to this. For at least the first few tanks, I'll have a little extra castor oil in it. Mix it in there. I have used just castor oil from Walmart before. It's in the pharmacy area. I've heard that kind of gels up or something happens with that. You're better off going to your motorcycle shops and get a Benol. I think it's a Klotz. Anyways, they should have just straight oil there. So a heat gun also comes in handy, and a head heater. Now this is a 12 volt. I don't even remember what the brand is. This was a cheaper one. I've had some of the better ones off, I can't even remember the names now. This one, yeah, it doesn't have a brand on it, but I think it was like 30 bucks or less on eBay. And it's been working good. One thing I don't like is it has this button that you push, and the light comes on, and it has like a 10-minute timer. So breaking in an engine, you're running it longer than 10 minutes. You gotta just pay attention. It went off and turn it back on. And always monitor the temps. That's another thing you're gonna need is a good temp gun. I'll grab mine in a little bit here. So I think that's about it. Well, I use a 12 volt, but I don't use batteries. I use my charger has outputs on the power supply, so I'll just plug it into my 12 volt power supply on my charger, and I have actually have a cord made up, so I got two different leads off it. So I'm at the track, I can actually heat two different engines at the same time. So I'll put the head heater on here and we'll get some heat in it. Now for the initial fire, this is only going to get it, if you let this on there like 15 minutes, it's probably going to get it around 200 degrees. We want a little bit warmer than that for that first fire up. Maybe first couple, depending on how tight it is. I recommend you check your engine. It's not going to hurt it to, put a 3mm screw in the end of the, some of them come with the screw in the end of the crank, and turn it over and just kind of see what you're facing against. This one actually, this 28 wasn't that tight. I was surprised. Some of the 28s I've seen I've modified quite a few this year. Some were pretty tight, and some are not super tight, but some were tighter than others. This one's a little bit looser one, so we shouldn't have any problems with the box. I think that's about it. We're going to let this heat up, and then we'll come back and fire it up for the first time. Okay, we got the engine heater on. It's been sitting on there for quite a while. One thing I did forget to mention is the Novarossis come with most of them come with a number 6 plug, which is a pretty cool plug. And if your engine came with like a colder plug, that's one time that I'll say it's okay to put a hotter plug in. Now what that does is, like if you have too cold a plug, a lot of times like you'll have to keep the glow igniter on there to keep it running. When you got it rich and it's cold, or when it's too rich and stuff on break-in. So it makes things easier to just throw in a hotter plug. I think I have an O'Donnell 77T in there now. Actually, it's honestly is just an old one I had laying around, and it lit up pretty bright. OSP 3 or P4 would work for break-in. I don't recommend tuning it with that, but if you're just going to be running low RPM or just running it in the driveway, this is perfectly fine. So it's been sitting up there, but I'm going to check the temperature here. It's 209 degrees. That's decent for the head heater. Now I'll take, and I've done it already, is I'll actually heat up the bottom of the chassis, because the chassis it'll soak heat right out of the engine. That's a heat. The chassis does act as a heat sink. So you want to, otherwise that'll cool the engine down a little where we're running it and stuff. You be careful when you're heating up stuff not to heat any the carb boot or some of the electronics or anything, but a little bit down in the block here isn't going to hurt. And I'll just pull it up. I want to get this engine a little bit hotter than that. They say you're not supposed to run the engine heater without being on the engine, but just for a short time won't hurt. See where we're at now. I think it'll be warm enough. Like I said, I'm at about 245. So I think we're gonna fire this up. I got fuel in, but one thing, we need fuel up to the carb right away. Otherwise you're wasting rotations, and it's not gonna fire up right away. So what I'll do is I'll just take and hold the carb open a little bit. I can see the fuel going right up. You can actually kind of hear it popping and boiling in there. And we're going to turn the car on. I'm going to turn the idle up. Whoops. I'm going to manually set that idle up so it has a so it can just idle better. So I just turned my idle up so it's actually hanging open a little bit. That way it'll stay running better, and we'll adjust that when I get it running. So now we got fuel up to the carb, engine's warm. Well, now we'll try and fire it the first time. Had it a little bit too high. Now you want to leave the glow igniter on it for a few minutes, the first fire at least. See, that sounds kind of lean, so I'm going to richen it up. Good thing, have your tuning screwdriver handy. That's better. idle so the wheels are barely turning is a good place for that first tank. The first couple fires or first couple tanks, sometimes the idle will go up and down, and that'll kind of settle in usually. Okay, so I ran a half a tank of fuel through it, turned it off, and cooled it. Now it is fine to put it in front of a fan. If you're just going to do it the next day, that's fine too. I'll let it sit for an hour, put it in front of a fan. Doesn't matter as long as you cool it down to close to air temperature. Now I have done, like if I'm doing this in my garage and it's 30 degrees out and I got a heated shop, I have ran like a 3/8 rubber hose out and then ran it outside. In fact, my break-in bench has that. That's why I'd rather be out today doing this out in the driveway, but we're fine. This thing did die a few times on me. It would run better with the glow igniter on. I had to lean it out a little bit to get it to run without the glow igniter. So there's a little bit of a balance there between the hot plug. Going to the hot plug, you can run a little richer. With the glow igniter on it, it will run better, richer. So there's a little bit of a balance. You need to play with the needles, but it'll be inconsistent for the first couple of tanks at least. But my whole plan, what I recommend, is do that first heat cycle, heat it, cool it, then heat it up again, run that half a tank like I just did, and now my plan is to run the rest of this tank, and then I'll cool it. And then after that, I'll run a full tank and down and then cool it. So I'll just cool it between each tank after that. And then after 2 tanks, it's starting to get a little more consistent. Then I recommend just driving it in the driveway. Just do a figure 8s in the driveway. Put on an old set of tires. Just run it slow. Let it kind of blurb a little bit. But the biggest thing is keep monitoring the engine temperature. Now, if you're doing this and you don't have an engine heater, you don't have the money for one, but you do have a heat gun, you can do that and then wrap it in tin foil. Some guys use tin foil. I prefer like a can coolie, an old can coolie. Put it over the top. A sock would work too. So just something to keep the head warm and the engine warm. Now it does make a difference. When I use that Bones break-in fuel, I was able to keep the engine warmer with that. So this thing's about to get up to temp. I don't think there's really any reason to go through the whole process with you. Now that I explained, what I'm going to do each tank. Like I said, the biggest thing is kind of balancing the needles. These needles I didn't touch from factory because usually most engines come at a pretty good break-in. People talk all the time about, oh, what's the factory settings for this engine? Well, once it's broke in, you ran it, you never want to go back to those factory settings. Now you want, you can ask for someone's, what they have for needle settings and stuff, but it's always going to be different if you're at sea level or up in the mountains or whatever. So I do have an engine tuning video. I don't really care where the needles are. I don't care what the idle gap is right now. I don't care that, but when I'm done breaking it in, that's when I'll start tuning the engine for racing or for bashing or whatever you're doing. So I'm not worried about all that tuning stuff right now. I just want to keep it as rich as I can with keeping the engine hot. Above 200 degrees is what I recommend. And then also too, like on a really tight engine, like I was saying, you'll actually hear when it's cooling down, because you'll actually hear a little ting 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 ting, and that's the rod. That's the rod. It's stressing the rod. It's you can actually hear that at the top of the stroke, and it's definitely noticeable. You can kind of hear a little ting, ting, ting. And you want to get some more heat on it then. So we'll fire this thing up again. I think that's about all. I think I covered about everything. I'll probably just run this Circle 8s in the driveway tomorrow maybe or something, but I'll run the rest of this tank, then another full tank on the box, and then start driving it slow in the driveway. Like I said, this one was a little erratic. If it's an RTR engine, I recommend a race engine. I recommend 6 to 8 tanks, but it kind of, you want it like this one I said it wasn't as tight, so I might go 6 on it. But if it was really tight and it's still tight after 6 tanks, then I might go 8 tanks, or you know, and then just kind of run it easy at the track. Or make sure you always preheating is a good thing, even if you've got 3 gallons on the engine. So that if you preheat every time, it kind of gets that cold start. The cold starts are hard on it, so if you preheat it, it'll fire up. It'll be, if you're a racer, you'll be on the track, kind of ready to hit the track. Like before I had the head heaters, we'd go and that first lap it would be kind of rich, and you couldn't really clear the jumps and stuff until you got some heat in it. With the head heaters, it's ready to go when you hit the track. So we'll get a little more heat in this here and fire it up. Now the cylinder is down here, the sleeve is down here. The sleeve isn't way up here, so putting some heat right there in the center of the block is your best bet. You probably saw me, I was checking the temp down here too. I normally don't check the temp down there, it's 240 degrees. It's a little cooler up there on the top, but as long as that, where the cylinder is, that's what's going to expand and let it fire up a little bit easier. So I'll fire it up here. What we got? Like you'll hear that go up and down, the idle go up and down. It'll kind of do that for a few things. Trim up a little bit. See, there just all of a sudden did that. I'm not really sure why. Probably wouldn't have done that if I would have left the glow igniter on it. I'm assuming maybe some fuel building up in the crankcase, and all of a sudden it kind of richens up. If you got the remote in your hand and you can kind of give a little bit of gas when you kind of hear that. Oh. You know, to be honest, I have more trouble like this with the Novarossis. I'm gonna lean it all over. Yeah, like I said, I have a little more trouble breaking in Novarossis for some reason. On a quarter turn leaner. My head heater needs to be on too. I was gonna say something. I don't know what. Hear that when I put the niter on? I'll leave that on a little while. could be this plug that I put in wasn't quite as hot as I thought it was and stuff too, but yeah, see, it's bogging down a little bit. It's richening up a little bit, but it's not dying with the glow igniter on there, so I'll just leave that on. It takes a lot of patience. You'll get frustrated. One thing I didn't cover yet. Okay, one thing I didn't cover, which is very common because this didn't happen to me, is a lot of times when it dies like that, and when it dies anytime, it'll stick and you go to fire it up and the engine's not turning over. And it'll stick at the top. And what you do is you just put your screwdriver in the flywheel and kind of grab that and turn it until it pops free, and then you want to make sure it's free. You can almost kind of give it a little bit of a, make sure it's in the middle there when you go to fire it, because if they're really tight, they're really a pain. And push firmly too, so you're making a good connection with the box, with the wheel. So we'll get this fired up again. That's one thing I'm glad I just thought of that, because that's one of the frustrating things. People say, well, my engine locked up. Well, with the tight pinch, it's going to do that at the top. I got lucky with this engine. It didn't have a lot of mechanical pinch new. I like doing quick little stabs there. Some people just put it on the box and let it run. You know, just let the wheel. That does kind of work, but giving it a little pop sometimes gets because if it's already connected with the rubber wheel, it's not going to go any faster than that. You'll kind of hear it pop a little bit and then go. But I always like doing quick little jabs like that, like I just did, to get it to fire up when it didn't want to. Obviously, it was a little rich because it kind of bogged down here before when it quit. Smoking as much. Sometimes it does that. It could be the engine had some oils on the head or whatever too. I always like turning engines off if it's just running idle like that, slow. I like hitting the flywheel. Now, a lot of times if I'm at the track, I'll just, if you got a decent pair of shoes that have a little kick out in the back, I'll turn it up and just hit it with the heel of my foot. That was kind of my, and or if you had like a little rubber thing, maybe, I think some screwdrivers and stuff have like a little rubber thing, you can just hit it. If you plug the exhaust, that sometimes can kind of richen up the engine, give it a little too much fuel, and I personally had problems when I was new to Nitro. I had problems with, we'd run a car on the track, we'd come back, and I'd stop it by plugging the exhaust, and the next time we fired it up, that plug was dead. And it happened to me 2-3 times, and a guy that was doing it a little longer than I had said, "Oh, are you plugging the exhaust?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Don't do that, hit the flywheel." And I didn't have as much problem with plugs then. So my tuning ability, back when we started, probably wasn't there either. So that was probably part of the reason the tune, it probably had a wide idle gap and kind of all the new stuff that new people have. Thanks for watching this. I hope you learned something. We'll probably try and I'll get this engine broke in, but there's really no reason for you guys to watch me run every tank, because I'm doing the same thing. Preheating, running it, kind of playing with the needles a little bit. So that's about it. One thing I did forget to say was keep the RPMs low until you're kind of done breaking in the engine. Just slow trigger movements, no wide open for 5 seconds or anything. Just kind of keep the RPM steady. Just if you're driving in the driveway just doing figure eights, just kind of a nice high idle doing figure eights, or just down and back. Just kind of try not to run the whole length of the driveway or whatever if you have a long driveway. You don't want a lot of RPM. You want to just kind of steady, kind of a blubbery, rich sound, and also monitoring the temperatures. But that thing's really smoking. I don't know. So thanks for watching.